let's talk about DNF Duel and how this ridiculous character I'm fighting on the screen named Crusader changed my opinion about the game for the better somehow. DNF Duel is a new modern fighting game that doesn't really play like modern fighters. Oftentimes, many modern fighting games are designed with specific purpose and strong, but at times overbearing system mechanics that determine how the game will and should be played. From your Melty Blood, where the shield mechanic during the first season was a major pain point for the NA player base, or with Gear, where there's an attempt to find a sweet spot between character strength and the system. Ultimately though, characters that use the system well will shine in a game like Gear, while we, the players, can use our unique character specific design to change the approach and form our own playstyle. This approach for most games won't change. With the new era of fighting games coming, Street Fighter 6 namely, it's quite obvious that the system mechanics and how your characters play it will heavily determine character strength and viability. The system mechanics shape how people will approach the game in conjunction to character strength. DNF is, well, a little different. This game doesn't really play like your modern fighter. Honestly, it reminds me of fighting games that you used to see back in the day. When I say back in the day, I mean like 10 years ago or something like that. Or some more recent high power fighters like BB Tag or MVCI. Once again, that might sound like a bad thing to you if you have certain perceptions about those games, but it's not to say it's bad per se. It's more say the power level is extremely high. It's through the roof, balanced around being unbalanced. Each character is so incredibly unique in their own right, and it's full of these absurd tools and options. The character heavily shapes how the game will be played, not necessarily the system. You got auto tracking moves, normals to cover 8% of the screen that can convert absurdly high damage for some of these characters, and safe on block DPs that lead into a reward. Nothing I would normally want in your fighting game. Yet, after playing this game over the last few days, I find myself enjoying the process. Every character has something so hilariously strong that you go to either blame the beast or accept the game for what it is. The system provides minimal support. Your character and the player have to do the job on their own, they're left to drive. This provides me a brand new lens to view the game. Normally you would have balance between characters and systems, but now I mainly just have my character's tools and some small things about the system that are important to know. The game is interesting because the game is both restrictive and, well, a little loose. Galley options are rather small amongst the characters, going from ABS, which should be viewed as light, medium, heavy. And some characters will have unique restrictions or tools attached to them, like how Crusader doesn't have many galley options, or like how Striker can reverse speed. And then you have MS, which is your mass skill, and that's how you spend your bar, similar to EX moves. Since galley options for the most part are universal, it allows players to pick up characters rather quickly. Where the feeling of freedom comes in is how you freestyle and pick moments with your character's overwhelming tools. Each character has such unique options, and sometimes sound downright bizarre abilities like Zerker's install. It drains life so quickly it makes him very volatile, yet it speeds him out dramatically and makes him an ever-growing threat everywhere on the screen. This feeling is no different per character. Your insane tools allow you to cover angles that you wouldn't expect and gamble in strange ways. May that be Lost Warrior's ability to appear out of thin air, or Ghostblade covering the ground and air so suddenly with his ghost. You feel very powerful as the player. You feel like you're in control, at least when you're running offense. Well, in turn, a game like Gear allows you to solve problems with the system and your character. DNF forces you to engage with your character's options. Honestly, I think it's kind of refreshing. From my perspective, the game heavily wants you to stay close to the chest and RPS frequently, which may contradict the perception by the general fighting game community. My reasoning is pretty simple about this though. It has to do with the actual system mechanics in place, because they still are important. Let's talk about conversion. Conversion can only be done with Grey Life, and the Grey Life is caused by taking damage from regular, normals, or chip from mana moves. Players will feel the incentive to use mana skills to either frame trap, fish in neutral, or simply poke. The caveat is that the Grey Life quickly refills. While it would be nice if it was a little bit slower, we can work around this by staying close to our opponent as stated earlier. Since it's early in the game, players aren't really used to using conversion often, or how to use it really. Most commonly used by Zerker players, since they have easy access to extension. From my perspective, conversion causes odd RPS scenarios in this game. Suddenly, the player can use the different approaches to traverse the screen. Do they jump and use their mass skill or dive kick, if they have one of course, to force an engagement? Maybe they have a fast ground tool that they can fish with. Something like Inquisitor kind of has both of these. If any of these are blocked, conversion has you covered, similar to RC in Gear. If you want to pick a really simple example in Gear, it's just like how people cheat neutral with like Ram's big sword ability and then RC right afterwards. To me, this can explain why movement on the ground and in the air initially feels so odd. Clearly the game is designed to be grounded. I don't think anyone's going to argue that. They want you to slowly approach across the screen by dash blocking using the guard button, akin to FD breaking in Guilty Gear. While in some other aspects, the air approach is also like other Arc 6 titles because you actually keep run momentum during your jump. Unlike other Arc 6 titles, there's no air blocking, which really hurts how you would want to approach neutral, especially with these big buttons in the way. The thing is though, while these big ground buttons are covering a lot of the distance, the actual anti-airs in this game are actually quite weak in a sense. One button DPs are useful, but for most characters don't offer you a great reward, and can be baited with good movement because of the distance they cover. Let's say a Berserker one that goes straight up. While 2S, your crouching heavy attack, has an amazing reward for pretty much every character that has access to a good anti-air that way. However, it's very slow, which will require you to be prepared in advance regarding the approach. Tack on some insane air buttons and you're terrified of even to attempt to anti-air. It's a double-edged sword. In turn, the ground movement, as many of you have either heard or experienced, is, well, sluggish for majority characters in the cast. You feel like you're slowly inching across the screen to simply play the video game. Paired with some really strong zoning tools like Crusader Spear or just launcher, I don't know, doing launching things, or the long range of Vanguard, this creates for an extremely frustrating experience if you're playing a character that doesn't have a fast run or what have you. But all the characters will, at some point, get great life, especially against when you're fighting your Vanguards, your Crusaders, your launchers. And as stated earlier, this allows you to RPS in neutral due to conversion. Risk versus reward can be swayed by using your character's strong tool, and basically one of the only system mechanics we have in our arsenal, at least in this particular scenario. While at first glance it might be a long range keep out oriented game that will just slow down over time, part of me feels like it might just speed up and people will be incentivized to gamble more often and people will be incentivized to RPS more often. I think it's meant to be an aggressive game. You pick your moments and you gamble. That being said, let's talk about the offense and how in this game it feels very overwhelming at times, yet so toothless. Characters have oppressive lockdown tools, incredibly long block strings that threaten your guard bar, skip neutral options even without conversion, and any individual hit can lead into this immense amount of damage. Just look at like Swiftmaster, for example. Yet the mix-ups in the game are rather tame. Many characters, as of recording, don't have strong ways to open you up. They simply make you block. This creates this weird paradox, which leads me to think how Strike Throw is in this game. So let me explain how I view offense. Right, I'm gonna break it down. I'm gonna use some gear related terms for everybody. If you got command grab, congratulations, you're playing Kai Kisuke. If you have high low pressure, you can be just like everyone's favorite blonde from Guilty Gear, go Lewis. Otherwise, your normal throw doesn't really lead to a whole lot per se. Throws send people across the screen when they're not in the corner. And in the corner, you don't actually have that much advantage. Your advantage varies for some interesting reason. This feels like an absurd mechanic to me, but I think they just want scrambles and RPS engagements to occur. Because there's no immediate threat of a meaty outside of the corner, I have to say, why wouldn't you just RPS in these situations? You can immediately choose to back up, jump, block, engage with your newly found gray life, and get your offense started after you've been thrown. In turn, the thrower in this situation has to make a call out of what their opponent will do. Once again, just to be clear, I'm not trying to defend this decision. I would personally like if throws were stronger and was designed like a normal fighting game, but this is just the tools we got. They want scrambles to occur. So in turn, many players may come to the conclusion, why not just block it out? Which is why the guard bar exists in the first place. This is also as a recording. People are currently labbing more and more ways to crush the guard bar and kill someone with no guard cancel is done. Furthermore, some characters have strong ways of baiting guard cancel, like the reverse beat of Striker or mixing Molotov against some characters. There's an issue with this general approach. If you just sit there and allow people to run their offense, you may just lose this game without having a chance to fight back. In turn, the game has provided characters with strong options to RPS with. Some tools have such long startup and that in practice, you should be able to stop your opponent from setting up. Furthermore, many options that leave players plus on block create a long distance between them and their opponent. Factoring the long startup on so many normals, no player is truly at advantage. It's once again, it's just another RPS situation. Now, am I saying that you should challenge Crusader or Hitman every time they do something to you? No, but I would consider it. Simply sitting there and not using either of your character's options or the bare bone mechanics that we have won't win you the video game. Well, while this is a blocking game akin to something like your Under Night, which I believe is a blocking game as well, you block a lot in that game, picking your moment is, well, just as important. Well, I spent most of this video talking about the, I think, 4 system mechanics that we have in this game. I do have some final thoughts about power level, and for anyone that's on the fence about this game, either playing it or not, High power level are a dying breed in fighting games. Oftentimes we don't see them because they create a frustrating experience, especially for the person on defense. The person on offense is having the time of their lives. They're just doing stuff. They're enabled to do everything they ever dreamed of with their character, and they feel like they're in so much control. Where the person on defense is just saying they're very frustrated. They feel like they can't press a button, they can't escape these options. There's nothing they can do. And the system's not going to help them. This game is no different. It's a high power fighting game. If you're interested in this game or currently playing it, you have to learn how to accept it for what it is. Things are going to be strong. Characters are going to be strong. Options are going to be powerful, and they're going to be annoying, but so is your character. If you're sitting there and you're playing DNF and you're like, I'm just going to wait for nerfs to occur, I have some really bad news for you. Now, this applies for more than this DNF, but nerfs aren't going to save your enjoyment in the video game, at least not all the time. There's also arc style, so they'll probably just buff the character that you don't like. You need to find options within your toolkit to overcome these scenarios. Figure out how you can gamble and fight back in RPS with your opponent, because you're going to have to. You need to be active sometimes. Don't just simply complain on Twitter just because you don't like something, or complain. I'm not your dad. While I know this is still the honeymoon phase, I think this game's a lot more fun than I thought. I only hope players stick around, especially because we have a more normal, usable rank system over something like Strive, where, you know, I've been playing that and the tower makes me grumpy. What do you guys think about DNF Duel? Like, comment, subscribe, you know the YouTube stuff, and I'll see you around next time. This has been Billy Hit. Peace.